My son-in-law got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened, and he's in bad shape. We need help. He's bleeding all over, and I may have killed him." These chilling words, spoken by a former FBI agent to a 911 dispatcher at 3 a.m. on August 2, 2015, would unravel one of the most shocking family murder cases in North Carolina history. When police arrived at the luxury home in Walberg, they discovered a scene so brutal that seasoned investigators would struggle to sleep for weeks. The victim's skull was shattered beyond recognition, beaten with such savage fury that forensic experts couldn't even count the individual blows. But the real horror wasn't just the violence, it was discovering who wielded the weapons and why they claimed it was justified. Jason Corbett's story began as a tale of love, loss, and hope in the rolling hills of Limerick, Ireland. At just 30 years old, this devoted father had already endured unimaginable tragedy. His beloved wife, Margaret Maggs Fitzpatrick, had died suddenly from an asthma attack in November 2006, leaving Jason alone with two impossibly young children, 2-year-old Jack and 12-week-old Sarah. The house that had once echoed with laughter fell silent. Jason, overwhelmed by grief and the crushing responsibility of single parenthood, knew he needed help. In April 2008, hope arrived in the form of 24-year-old Molly Martens from Tennessee, a blonde, vivacious au pair who seemed like an answer to his prayers. Initially, Jason's family welcomed Molly with open arms. His sister Tracy noted how gentle she appeared with the children, how Jason's perpetual sadness seemed to lift when she was around. After years of mourning, Jason was finally showing glimpses of his old self. By 2011, love had bloomed between the widowed father and his children's caregiver, leading to marriage and a fresh start in North Carolina. Jason spared no expense in building their new life. He purchased a $390,000 home, gave Molly $80,000 for furnishings, bought her a BMW SUV, and even contributed $49,000 to his father-in-law's wedding expenses. To the outside world, they appeared to be the perfect blended family, a grieving widower who had found love again, and a young woman who had stepped into the role of devoted stepmother. But beneath the surface of this American dream, something sinister was taking root. The night of August 1st, 2015, started like any other in the Corbett household. Jason had returned from a social function early, reportedly humiliated after Molly had fat-shamed him in front of friends, an incident his sister would later call the last straw in Jason's decision to return to Ireland without his wife. What happened in the early hours of August 2nd would forever remain a matter of deadly dispute. According to the 911 call, a fight had erupted between Jason and Molly in their bedroom. Thomas Martens, a former FBI agent and Molly's father, claimed he heard the scuffle from downstairs and grabbed a baseball bat, supposedly a gift for the children, before rushing upstairs to investigate. Martens told police he found Jason with his arm around Molly's throat, threatening to kill her. In what he claimed was a desperate act of protection, Thomas struck Jason with the bat. But the violence didn't end there. As Jason lay bleeding on the bedroom floor, both Thomas and Molly continued their assault. Molly admitted to striking Jason with a paving stone she claimed was on her nightstand for a children's craft project. When paramedics arrived less than 10 minutes after the 911 call, they found Jason's body remarkably cool, with a temperature much lower than expected, raising immediate questions about how long the Martenses had waited before calling for help. The initial investigation seemed straightforward. Both Thomas and Molly Martens had confessed to killing Jason Corbett. The question wasn't who had committed the crime, but whether their claims of self-defense held any water. Crime scene investigators found Jason's body covered in blood on the bedroom floor, his skull so severely shattered that pathologist Dr. Craig Nelson couldn't determine the exact number of blows, estimating at least 12 strikes with both a baseball bat and a brick. 8 of these blows would have been sufficient to render him unconscious, 4 individually, could have killed him. Thomas Martens, with his law enforcement background, repeatedly emphasized his state of mind during police interviews, seemingly building a self-defense case from the moment he was questioned. Molly corroborated every detail of his story, claiming a history of domestic violence and describing Jason as a heavy drinker who had become increasingly controlling. The children, traumatized and confused, initially supported these claims when interviewed by social services. Sarah stated her father had anger management issues, while Jack claimed to have witnessed Jason physically assaulting Molly on previous occasions. Everything seemed to point toward a tragic case of domestic violence culminating in justified homicide. But seasoned investigators knew that in murder cases, the most obvious explanation isn't always the truth. As the investigation deepened, disturbing inconsistencies began to emerge. Crime scene examiner Lieutenant Frank Young found no injuries on Molly, despite her claims of being strangled. In fact, he had to instruct her to stop rubbing and tugging at her neck during evidence photographs, as if she were trying to create marks that weren't there. Toxicology reports revealed Jason's blood alcohol concentration was only 0.02%, a quarter of North Carolina's legal driving limit, contradicting claims that he was a violent drunk. Meanwhile, trazodone, a powerful sedative prescribed to Molly just 3 days before Jason's death, was found in his bloodstream. The timeline raised additional red flags. Paramedics noted Jason's body temperature suggested he had been dead longer than the Martenses claimed. Forensic scientist Dr. Stuart James testified that blood spatters indicated Jason may have suffered initial blows while in bed, and blood found on Thomas Martens' boxer shorts suggested some strikes occurred when Jason's head was already on the floor. Most damning of all, Dr. James discovered blood drips on a vacuum cleaner that defied the laws of physics. Strong evidence that the crime scene had been altered before police arrived. The children's testimonies, initially supporting the Martenses, began to crumble. 9 months after the murder, Jack recanted his statements in a video call with the sheriff's office, revealing that Molly had coached him on what to say and made up false stories about abusive behavior. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Jason's own family and friends, who painted a drastically different picture of the marriage than what the Martenses had presented to police. Tracy Lynch, Jason's sister, revealed a pattern of disturbing behavior from Molly that stretched back years. She described Molly as a fantasist who lied about being an Olympic swimmer, a qualified Montessori teacher, and claimed to have previously fostered a child. Most chillingly, Lynch discovered that just before their wedding, Molly had told friends she had been pen pals with Jason's first wife, Mags, claiming Mags had died of cancer, despite never having known her and despite Mags actually dying from an asthma attack. The web of lies extended to Molly's treatment of the children. Lynch revealed that Molly had secretly told Jack and Sarah that their father had killed their mother. A devastating psychological manipulation, later corroborated by Sarah herself. Neighbors recounted how Molly claimed Sarah was her biological daughter, even fabricating detailed stories about a difficult labor. But the most revealing evidence came from the motive hidden in plain sight. Court records showed that Molly had been seeking legal advice about custody rights since 2013, desperately wanting to formally adopt Jason's children, while he consistently refused. Jason had specifically processed the children's legal status through his job, rather than Molly's family. Concerned about their repatriation to Ireland, should something happen to him. A former co-worker of Thomas Martens delivered the final piece of the puzzle, testifying that Thomas had expressed hatred for Jason months before the murder, stating, "That son-in-law, I hate him," just 2 months before the killing. On August 9, 2017, after less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered their verdict. Thomas Martens, 67, and Molly Martens, 33, were unanimously found guilty of second-degree murder. The brutal mathematics of the crime had spoken louder than any self-defense claim. No person defending themselves delivers 12 crushing blows to someone's skull, During sentencing, Jason's then 13-year-old son, Jack, delivered a victim impact statement that reduced the courtroom to tears. He declared that Molly would never be a part of his family and would always be remembered as a murderer. Molly wailed uncontrollably as his words echoed through the courtroom, her carefully constructed facade finally cracking under the weight of a child's devastating truth. Both received sentences of 20 to 25 years in prison. Jurors later revealed they never believed Jason had attacked Molly, with one describing her as very manipulative. The prosecution's theory was clear. Jason was murdered because he planned to return to Ireland with his children, and the incident was staged to prevent this and secure custody. But the story doesn't end there. In a shocking twist that would make Jason's family relive their nightmare, the North Carolina Supreme Court overturned the convictions in 2021, ruling that certain evidence had been wrongly excluded from the original trial. Rather than face a new trial, the Martenses accepted plea bargains in October 2023, with charges reduced to voluntary manslaughter. They were sentenced to just 51 to 74 months, and with time served, they walked free on June 6, 2024, after serving what the former sheriff called a slap on the wrist. Today, Jack and Sarah Corbett, now young adults, continue to seek justice for their father. In their final victim impact statements, they branded Molly a monster who had weaponized their childhood trauma. Sarah's words haunt the courtroom still. Molly had removed her wedding ring almost immediately after Jason's death and told the grieving 8-year-old to stop crying and get over it. The Netflix documentary, A Deadly American Marriage, suggests that Molly may have been attempting to stage a domestic incident to obtain a protective order and emergency custody of the children. The brutal murder of Jason Corbett may have been the ultimate manipulation, a father's love for his children exploited by the very person he trusted to care for them. In the end, Jason Corbett lies buried beside his first wife, Mags, in Limerick, Ireland. His children, now safe with their aunt, carry the scars of a crime that shattered their innocence and stole their father. And somewhere in Tennessee, the people who destroyed their family walk free. Their deadly American marriage finally ended, but at a cost that can never be repaid.